Hello, and welcome to this talk on the representation of volcanoes in popular video games and their potential for learning. In this talk, I will introduce the project, focus on the difference between COTS games and educational games, pedagogy, the video games consulted in the paper this talk is based upon, and look at some things we found before conclusions. This all started around about 2018 when I played Spyro the Reignited Trilogy and came across a level which had lava falls, and I said, this doesn't look right. This turned into many blog posts, Ed also producing a lot of posts, and also one from Nadine Gabriel. Ed and I presented a poster on this at last year's VMSG, where we brought our Nintendo Switches along and people got to run around in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There are many games that are called either educational or serious games. These games are intentional in design to teach the player about particular topics, whereas COTS are purely focused on the entertainment factor. While the use of educational games has been heavily researched, the potential of COTS have not, especially in geoscience. For educational games research, most conclude that players, particularly children, tend to lose focus or enthusiasm, nulling educational benefits. However, if designed and implemented appropriately, the opposite effect can happen. Modern COTS games can exceed entertaining gameplay of 50 hours, and a large advantage over educational games is their ability to reach millions more players around the world. While the benefits of learning through COTS may not be as obvious or structured as standard learning through an educational system, when exposed to situations such as unplanned tests, students can surprise themselves with what they have learned from games, such as improved knowledge of historical events after playing the Assassin's Creed series. Outside of the educational system, video games have an amazing potential to stimulate self-learning. There are two particular types of learning that can be induced from playing COTS. Tangible learning is a process of self-educating oneself through exposure to a topic in a context that they already enjoy. With video games being so popular with millions of people around the world, the use of tangible learning by playing such games could prove to be a powerful tool for encouraging student interaction or boosting public engagement. God of War, for example, has the potential to interest players in Greek mythology as the players interact with various Greek deities and other mythological beings. Incidental learning refers to learning that is unplanned, often unconscious in nature, which develops through engaging in tasks or activities. Regarding video game players, they can become so focused on completing missions or drawn into storylines that they do not register what they are learning at the time. Assassin's Creed 2, for example, is set in Renaissance Italy, with its several maps that allow the player to fully explore the cities, learning about culture, politics, and historical events of the time while progressing through the game's storyline. For this, we consulted 9 games: Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2 and LEGO DC Supervillains, Subnautica, The Elder Scrolls Skyrim, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Pokemon Emerald, and Sea of Thieves, which is the source of this video's deadly encounter with a lava bomb. The following 2 graphs show realistic, unrealistic, both insufficient data and with no example for volcanic features on the left and volcanic hazards on the right. What was found through playing such games is that there was no perfect game in regard to the portrayal of volcanic features. In most cases of unrealistic features, they tend to be exaggerated, such as overly sized stratovolcanoes and large volumes of lava flows being constantly produced. Whilst this does result in very stereotypical landscapes that will all be able to recognize as volcanic, it could also lead to a false belief that all volcanoes are of this shape and always have lava flows pouring out of them, which is far from the truth. These exaggerations will be included to improve the entertainment and excitement factor of the game experience, ruling that to be more important than making them more realistic. Lava flows are synonymous with volcanoes. They are always one to captivate an audience. There is also the danger that lava flows pose, creating a great risk factor that developers can readily implement into their games for an added level of difficulty. Therefore, it is easy to see why they are such a staple in COTS video games. However, it is the comparison between the appearance of volcanic features to those of volcanic hazards that highlights a problematic area, not only in the number of realistic to unrealistic encounters, but also in the number of encounters overall. In total, there are 78 representations of 8 common volcanic features. Of these, 35 are portrayed in a realistic manner. In contrast, there are only 31 representations of 6 common volcanic hazards, and only 7 of them are realistically portrayed. There are many potential reasons for developers focusing more on the visual effects of volcano than the hazards. One could be the cost of implementing the damage mechanics is not seen as worthwhile. For example, PDCs are immense catastrophic events that would require a great deal of animation development, potentially requiring a very dramatic moment of a story and even a cutscene to incorporate one. This would explain their low representation rate within video games. The area that would initiate the least amount of tangible learning, despite their importance within volcanology, would be towards tephrofoil deposits and gas emissions. In particular, the risks posed of these can cause. This is owed to the poor representation of the two topic areas within COTS video games, with volcanic ash often only presented as a particle effect and nothing more. As a result, players would be more likely to forget about volcanic ash, ignore it in similar style to banner blindness, instead of gaining an interest in volcanic ash and prompting self-education into how it is formed and the major health risks it poses to life or even the environmental benefits. Lava flows are found to be the most represented volcanic feature within video games, appearing in nearly every one reviewed. Each depiction of lava flows was reasonably aesthetically accurate, including evidence of high viscosity and cooling surfaces. In the case of solidified lava, showing ropey pahoi, pillow lavas, or columnar textures could be found, adding to the different forms that players can learn about. The accuracy of detail in each video game feature can be seen when compared to real-world examples of the same features. Lahars only feature in The Shadow of the Tomb Raider, being a sequence that must be traversed in order to progress in the game. The mechanics of the large flow itself were realistic, with the understanding the dynamics between the ratio of sediment and water content and its bulldozing power by destroying property and infrastructure. However, the sudden opening of large cracks and gaps subtracts from the realism in how lahars interact with the environment. Some inaccuracies include this active lava flow and falls underwater in the game Subnautica. These flows should be quenching. In Pokemon Emerald, is this person hiding in a pile of volcanic ash without any visible protection to the face or exposed skin. In Breath of the Wild, and quite common for other games reviewed, when jumping into the lava, the splash effect is very similar to how water would behave. In general, most lava flow mechanics are similar to water, but instead give burn damage. And lastly, perhaps the only inaccuracy that vexes me the most, in Spyro 2 there is a volcano that is way too peaky, climbable in this way, and very round lava bombs, although having some darker, more solid areas is more accurate. And to stop the eruption, you just go to the top to close the lid on it. COTS video games contain a wide range of volcanic features, including lava flows, volcanic ash, lava bombs, and even lahars, allowing millions around the world to interact with them in an entertaining environment outside of academia that could induce tangible learning. As expected, these games have a mixture of accurate and inaccurate features, with none shown to be flawless. Because of this, the use of COTS games for tangible learning should be done with caution. That is not to say they should be rejected entirely. Accurate features could be used within geoscience, particularly in regard to outreach work with the general public to capture an audience's attention without presenting misleading information, or to teach about volcanic hazards in a risk-free, engaging environment. The inaccuracies within the video games tend to be over-exaggerated in order to increase the entertainment factor, either by creating stunning landscape visuals or creating the risk factor to provide more of a challenge for players. While this could lead to a lack of true understanding towards volcanic systems, advantages can be taken away from this. One would be to think in terms of tactical learning. The landscapes may be over the top at times, but they are also enticing to look at and admire. Through the enticement, players could be drawn into the appeal of volcanoes and take to other forms of learning platforms to teach themselves more about features they find within the games. Education systems could also take advantage of this and use the inaccuracies within the video games as task assignments through facilitated learning methods. I have only touched upon the themes of this talk, but you can find more in the accepted paper that will appear hopefully by the time this talk is presented in Geosciences Communication. Thank you for listening.